Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Valpo Athletics Weekly, presented by our friends at Lakeshore Bone and Joint Institute. Brandon Vickery with you. Glad to be joined by the Director of Track and Field and Cross Country here at Valpo. That, of course, is Vincent Walker. And when we talk, it means it's Championship Week, the Outdoor Championship coming up this weekend in Terre Haute. Vinny, just what's this like for you and your team? What's the preparation like when you get to just a few days before the Outdoor Championships?
Yeah, there really is nothing like the outdoor championship. It's so unique in our sport is, cross country is a championship in the fall, and then we all get ready as a track program for a championship at the indoor season. But outdoor is kind of like the big icing on the cake of everything, right? I mean, our athletes, when they finish the outdoor championship, we start our downtime and then we start building for the summer, right? Which means from really beginning of June all the way to May again, we're thinking about the outdoor championship. And obviously we have those little milestones and we have to kind of peak in the fall, and then you do a little bit of a peak in February, March for the indoor championship, but you're not quite tapered and fully there yet. So outdoors kind of like that's the big dance, right? That's the big culmination of everything you've been working on for the whole year. And I mentioned it here with you before. It feels like your birthday and Christmas and all these things wrapped up because there is just so much excitement in the air, right? And everyone's at their best. You kind of fine tune things to the indoor season, have kind of a roller coaster of ups and downs like any season has. And, you hope by the time the outdoor season comes and you're at the outdoor championship, all the kinks are kind of worked out and you're at your best and you're feeling smooth and you're ready. I also think there's just excitement to be on a college campus this time of year to begin with graduation and years kind of wrapping up. And, there's just, I don't know, there's just energy that floats around. And I think the like addition to the outdoor championship just makes it a like poetry in motion.
Spinagle has had an excellent outdoor season in the javelin. Just what has stood out to you about his development? What are your thoughts on him going into this week?
Yeah, Brian's a very unique guy, and I don't think people always understand his full story of how he even got to become a javelin thrower or kind of found the javelin, I should say. He started off as a distance runner. He might be one of the only guys in Missouri Valley to run an NCAA regional in the 10K and be, knocking on the door of winning a conference title in the javelin. So he came here as a distance runner, and I think had a really great experience doing that. But we just knew that there was something more. And at one of his practices, he was kind of goofing around with the javelins, and he might have like tried hurdling or something goofy like that. But then ended up becoming a multi, and trained for the heptathlon indoor and the decathlon outdoor, and honestly, last year had a phenomenal deck. I mean, I can't remember the exact like PR he had, but it was, I mean, a couple hundred points, which is pretty substantial in the deck and cracked into our all-time list. And he'll tell you that like it certainly wasn't easy, and he probably always kind of gravitated towards the jav and maybe some of the throwing events in the deck and just the multi to begin with. And then coming into this year was like, hey, I think if I really take a step back and go all in the javelin, like I have the opportunity to do something really special and not just, winning a conference title, which is ultimately his big goal, but also knows that he wants to compete after May, right? We want to get closer to June and knocking on the door of being an NCAA first round qualifier and even being a national qualifier. And the crazy thing about the javelin is it just takes one. Right. I mean, in a lot of those field events that are so technical and you just have the right release angle and your block's just perfect. And, you catch the wind just right. And all of a sudden he goes from being a 63-meter javelin thrower to a 67 or 68, meter javelin thrower. And, he's done really good with just his progress throughout the season. He started off, wanting to, work from a short approach and do his six step and came out of the gates swinging at Raleigh and had that big 63-meter and some change PR. And that kind of really catapulted him into to the rest of the season. I think he really hasn't finished outside of the top like four of any meet we've gone to, and he's strung together a lot of wins. And now as he's built through his season, he's working on his full approach and going from an eight step for him. And he's got it in there. He's ready to line up that big one. And you see the way he trains and the way he carries himself, like he is truly a something special to watch. And we're very fortunate to have him at Valpo and just being a leader in the program as well. So I'm excited to see where he goes. And when I say that he is just scratching the surface of what he's capable of, I mean, he's a guy to watch out for even after he graduates. Like he's going to be throwing the javelin for many years after college, and he'll be fun to watch.
Some awesome story. Let's talk about the mid distance and the distance group on both the men's and women's side. Had some big performances in the 1500 on the women's side in your last meet at Illinois. Just kind of talk to me about that group in general going into the conference championship.
Yeah, when we're talking about our middle distance group, it's hard not to talk about Shantae and Alina, right? Shantae, is coming here as a transfer from UTSA and got here last January. She's from South Africa, and I remember like that first workout we did. She's like, "Is it always this cold here?" And like, I felt like maybe was going through some like moments in her head of like, "Holy smokes, is like the Midwest really where I want to be?" Right? And to her credit, after that we talked about like, "Hey, like." You just got to keep stringing these, days together, and it's going to be a little bit of a transition. But, I trust that, we brought you here for a reason. And if you can put some trust back into me, like we're going to get you where you want to be. And she had some really big goals. She was a really successful U18 and U20 athlete, even before coming to college. And this year, I think things have really started to line up for her. In the fall, she, ran a couple cross races. She didn't have eligibility, but she ran unattached somewhere. And I think really started to see like the fruits of her labor of all the transition from the different training styles and mileage and cross training that we did last year really started to pay off this year. And I think that got her really excited to then be back in uniform for the indoor season and came out and broke five for the first time in the mile, which is kind of that really big milestone, especially on the women's side. And that also kind of built a little bit more confidence, and we had some 3K PRs, and then that led to outdoor and it being kind of her last season in uniform. And her racing style is completely changed because of all that. I think even in indoor, it was kind of still being a little bit more nostalgic. Like, this is my last year. I just have all these big goals. And she kind of has been able to shake that. And now, just like, yeah, it's my last season, but like, what is there to be afraid of, right? Like, I'm going to go out here and give it my best effort. And, that's translated in her races. She is just fearless from the gun. She puts herself in a spot that maybe she doesn't quite belong or didn't just yet. And all of a sudden, when she's late into the race and she's still there, it's like, oh, maybe I do belong, right? And watching just the PR she's had, just nickel and dimed all season, not only in the 15, which is probably where she shined the most, but in the 800, she had some really good breakthroughs, and now is knocking on the door of running or breaking 430 in the 15, which really puts her in a whole different level. And she's someone to watch out for this weekend, trying to double at the conference championship. But I think she certainly will be someone to make the final and mix it up with some people. And the best part is I think there's a lot of conference schools that aren't betting on her to be there. So when they see a Valpo woman burning all eight cylinders down that straightaway, eating them up, they're certainly going to know who we are and what we're building and what we're doing. So I'm immensely proud of Shantae and everything she's just accomplished this season. And it's not over yet, right? We still got the big dance, and I'm excited to see her kind of cap off that senior year. And I appreciate that she put trust in me to help get her here to reach her goals. And then Alina is just another, incredible story. She came in as a freshman and was already recruited when I got here. And, she was actually our only freshman in that class, which was pretty crazy. And she's really kind of grown into herself as a leader in the program, but she'll be the first to tell you that she used to be a very anxious racer, right? And I don't know if it came from not always just having the confidence, like she would work out really well, but it wouldn't always translate into races. And then she ended up getting hurt and had a double labral tear, had surgery in one, started to come back, then the other labrum tore. And that was kind of something that really struggled with her. And with injuries, I think a lot of times they kind of hurt us more mentally than they probably do physically. And she has just been unbelievably resilient, always kept her head up, wasn't afraid to get to work. Like, it was one of those that if she had to pivot on a dime and change what our training plan was because something was kind of flaring up again, she would do that. And now kind of going into her senior year, and she'll be back next year with, because she's, with the injuries, has had some red shirts and stuff. But, it's kind of changed her mindset very much like Shantae. And, she is very thankful to be here and have these opportunities. And she remembers what it's like to have to do all that cross training or watching her teammates, race and run from the sidelines. And now when she toes the line, like she doesn't take it for granted. And when you've seen that, she broke five for the first time indoor and carried that momentum in, and now has run 216 for the eight and has run 434 and is cracked into our all-time list on a lot of stuff. And she just is really, just starting to really hit where things are catching a stride. And she's going to be really fun to watch, not only the end of the season, but going even to next year. And, the way she leads the team, and I think people really look up to her and take her advice. She's kind of lived through it all in our program. And now to see all that hard work pay off for her has just been so rewarding. And as a coach, makes me really proud. Then talking about the guys' middle distance group, right? It's hard not to talk about Joey Yaros. I mean, he kind of came out and surprised a lot of us in the indoor season, making that conference final and then leading our DMR off to a really good spot and helped our guys, be in contention to try to win that thing. And for him, it's not that we didn't think he could do it, right? It just kind of came as a surprise. I think, as a freshman, it's a lot of pressure to be told like, hey, you have to do these things. You have to make the final. You have to be the leadoff, on our DMR. And he's a guy who has certainly rose to the occasion. And this outdoor season has, been a little rocky with some stuff. I think once you do something like that, there's a lot of pressure to follow it up. And then we got sick, and that took us out from training a little bit, and kind of had to change the way we structured things. And now he's kind of shaken that. He's kind of got back on his feet, and his last race at Illinois was certainly a different race than he's kind of run in the past. He got out a lot hotter than he's used to, and was running with some kind of big dog guys. And I think that gave him some confidence of like, hey, these next 2 weeks I can really fine tune and adjust. And I see myself back in that final. And for him, he's not just satisfied with making the final and being happy to be there, but he wants to put points up on the board and not just one or two being seventh or eighth, right? Like he's got big goals and he wants to see himself on the podium. And certainly he can do it. And we're going to see him there at some point in his career. And by no means is it my expectation that a freshman goes and does that, but I really believe that he can do something special. And then Braden, I truly believe is one of the biggest dark horses in the conference. I think he's a guy who just doesn't get talked about enough. Has always been a guy who, isn't a big personality from the sense of like wanting to brag or pound his chest or whatever. He's really just like a lunch pail kind of guy, right? He shows up, gets his work done, grinds, never complains, always has a smile on his face, and then goes home and is kind of the last one out the door, right? He really builds up those people around him, and he's just a guy that I'm very fortunate to have on the team. He was the first guy out of making the final indoor for the mile. And I think ever since that moment happened, he has just been like hungry for more. It's been something that's pounded in the back of his brain. And there is no doubt in my mind that he's going to go out there and make the conference final. And once again, it's a freshman, right? We don't want to put those expectations like you have to do this. But those guys absolutely can. And to watch both of them, work together, both being in the same grade and pushing each other along, like those are going to be two guys that are going to be really fun to watch throughout their whole Valpo career. And I just can't speak highly enough for both of them. But Braden, biggest dark horse in Missouri Valley. Facts.
But the rest of your athletes, just anyone else that we should keep our eye on, anyone else to watch going into the championship.
Yeah, I would be you're really hard pressed to not bring up Samantha Rowley. Sam has had a really great freshman campaign, came out of the gates really swinging in the fall, and I think surprised herself on how much faster she could just be just from the summer and some of the early fall season. Then indoor really started to pick up some stride in the 5K and the 3K and realized like, hey, I kind of like this long stuff. And to have a freshman, step by your office and go, Coach, what do you think about the 10K? You're like, you want to run the 10K? Like usually we gotta, beg people or convince them that they're a 10K runner. A lot of times out of high school, some of the distance athletes, like, they're like, Coach, I'm a miler. And it's like, not at this level, you're not, as much as you want to be. And certainly we'll have to run some miles, we'll have to run some 15s, but you might be a longer's better, type gal or a guy. And Sam has been like foaming at the mouth to run a 10K ever since she got here. And we took her to Raleigh Relays and ran her first 10K there, and I think finished second all time. And is right behind Colette Liss on that list, and certainly has a way to go to try to reel in her time. But Colette's a legend here in our program and probably on our Mount Rushmore of women. So to be inching closer to her is means she's in good company over her career. But Sam is coming in. I think she's ranked third in the 10K and sat at second for a long time. I think 2 weeks ago or a week ago at Drake Relays, there's a young lady who kind of surpassed her by a couple seconds. But if you know Sam, that just feeds fire to the flame, right? Like she wants to be up there and doesn't want anyone to beat her. So she'll be really fun to watch there. And I'm excited. She's someone who, doesn't take things real serious. Like she likes to laugh and joke and have fun with it. And that balance, I think, has really helped kind of her growth as she is continued to develop through our program. And then how can you not talk about Kenzie? She's had a great steeple season this year, and Tennessee opened up her steeple or I think it was her second steeple of the year, but came away with a big W in SEC country, and certainly that's never easy to do. And she comes in as high ranked in the steeple, and for her, like she's always came from a really strong aerobic background, and we've really focused on doing some of the faster, speedier stuff and getting in a couple 15s and just getting more comfortable with being uncomfortable in that way. As weird as that sounds, it makes sense in our sport. To others, that doesn't necessarily. But she's someone I think will really come out and do something big and this weekend as well. Then Katie, one of our multis, seems like every time she steps on a track to compete in a HEP or pent, she's going after the school record or breaking her previous PR or moving up on the all-time list. And to be a multi and do all those events and train for 7 disciplines, I also don't think she gets enough credit and highlighted for what she accomplishes. And to go to a meet and be trying to warm up for long jump and do that while high jump's also going on, but then has to go and get ready for the hurdles and just to manage all that stuff, even just mentally, but let alone being able to train for it all physically is really something special. And those multis are you kind of joke that at the end of the year they're held together by glue and tape and all that stuff, but she does a really good job of doing the little things to keep herself in the cage to be able to keep fighting. Then KJ is, one of our high jumpers on the women's side who just kind of missed out on a scoring spot indoor. And, for her, I think she's one of those that she's kept that memory in the back of her head and has used it as a way to continue to fuel training and is ready to come out. And, she's someone who has had a really good breakout year in high jump. And I think if you ask her, she's hungry for more and had some big goals, so isn't satisfied. And I'm excited to see her go put up some big bars this weekend as well. Then I think you got to talk about Tyler if we're talking about the steeple. He's a guy who coming into the fall was dealing with a stress fracture and really didn't get to have the cross country season he would have liked or we would have liked as a program, but was still there being part of our regional team that helped us have a 15th place finish and become regionally ranked. And the reason that happened is because he is just a fighter, and that guy will literally like cry blood if it meant he was gonna do something big for his team. But he has had a really big breakout steeple and has cracked into the all-time list and now has put himself in scoring contention in the conference. Just ran a really good 15 at Illinois and built some confidence. And then the workouts we've had these last couple of weeks as we started our taper has really kind of built the confidence up for him. And he's a guy to look out for, and being so young, like he's going to be fun to watch. And I think that's kind of a reoccurring theme in our program is a lot of our freshmen, sophomores, and even juniors are young but doing really big things. And it shows, from the recruiting and developing that we're doing as a program is really setting us up. But then the last guy I want to talk about is Gabe, also one of our men's throwers. And he has just had a really awesome year in the shot, and I think maybe came out in a little bit more slow of a burn, but the last couple of meets we've had has really started to put some things together. And to see him excited, he's a guy who sometimes can be a little bit more stone-faced and like just loves to compete, but is pretty serious and dialed in when it's time to be serious. And when it's time to joke, he can joke around. But watching his confidence grow and shot, especially coming out of like Louisville and things like that, I mean, he's ready for a really big day and for a big PR. So I'm excited to continue to watch him build. But there's something special building here, and I get a lot of recruits that ask and a lot of high school coaches and people that are asking like, man, we've been watching you guys build and we've been familiar with Valpo and, like what's going on there right now? And I'll tell you, there's no secret sauce that myself and Coach Torres, are putting into our athletes. It's just consistent quality work. And we have people that are, deciding that this isn't an individual sport, which I think track and field gets lumped into a lot. This is, a sport that may be individual based, but it's all going for team success, right? And a lot of people are willing to put aside those individual accolades to come together for something bigger than themselves. And that's what's building here, man. And it's really special. And to be here at the helm of it all, it's really special to me. And all these athletes hold a really big place in my heart. It's like having 60 kids. So I'm excited what we're building here, and I'm excited to see the big dance.
Congrats on the build so far. Good luck this weekend. It's always an exciting week. Outdoor conference championships coming up this weekend. Appreciate the time today, Vinny.
No, absolutely. We'll look forward to the weekend and should be fun.
There he is, the director of track and field and cross country here at Valpo, Vincent Walker. We'll talk to you again next time on Valpo Athletics Weekly, presented by Lakeshore Bone and Joint Institute.